independence and all other things will be added. But as we speak, if you put a ship, plane anywhere around Africa and ask the youth of Africa to fly out, they will move. Even those in West Africa, if you ask them to fly to North Africa, they will go. It's that bad. But nurses are going.
Nurses are going. If you look at the history behind Sergeant Ajete, Corporal Tipo, and Private Odate Lamte, I mean, their death, you would notice that they were asking for what was due them.
Yeah.
They had gone to fight in World War II. They had come back. They had been promised some money. The monies were not there. And I had the opportunity to interview the oldest veteran who still is alive. He recently was given the rank of a W. He was a private, but he was given the rank of a W. And even him, he says that they have still not been paid. I mean, that's the people who have served. I mirrored that against the story of DK Poison, the great boxer, who was owed money for a long time. He actually lent money to Ghana to be able to feed ourselves under their Champon regime.
It was recently paid.
Recently. And the time value of money was not considered. Whatever was owed him then, since a Champon's time in the 70s, was just giving to him same amount of money. So, I mean, if he had put that in an investment, can you imagine how much he would have made out of it? And I honestly think that we don't treat our people well, which is why on the front page of the Daily Graphic today, exodus for greener pastures, 100 nurses leave Pantine Hospital. Story by Macklin Kofi, Pantine. Nearly 150 experienced nurses and other health professionals from the Pantine Hospital have left the shores of the country in search of greener pastures in the last 6 years. Of the number, 100 are specialized psychiatric and general nurses, while the rest consist of doctors, pharmacists, technicians, and other experienced personnel in the health delivery chain. Data sourced from the hospital showed that the number of experienced professionals that have abandoned their jobs started increasing in an alarming manner since the outbreak of coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. The phenomenon is defeating the efforts of the government to reinforce the workforce of the hospital with the recruitment of an additional 179 staff, professional nurses numbering 129. This is happening, whether you like it or not.
This is terrifying.
About 150 experienced, underline that, they're gone in search of greener pastures. And you know, I followed the Pantine story for some time. The Pantine story is a conversation of insecurity, is a conversation of not being treated well, is a conversation of accommodation. Because you know that for a long time, I think in the 70s also, they started some apartments for the nurses around those places. It has still not been completed. People are encroaching on the lands. They have to deal with people who are constantly attacking them. And 150 professionals, they're leaving. The WHO says we need 1 to about 500, 600. Right? One nurse. We have not been able to meet that ratio. These are experienced people who will be hired anywhere in the world.
This is for these are psychiatric specialists.
Thank you.
And trickling that down even more, WHO says countries allocate 15% of your health resources to your mental health.
It will not happen.
We are doing below 1% if we speak to experts. So to have over 100 psychiatric experts leave the shores,
it will not happen.
Is even more dire to the state of affairs as concerns the mental health of this country. But that permeates all the different sectors. Like William said, just park a plane. And in fact, when the war broke out, we saw governments around Africa having to really speak to the young men and women of the country to say, don't get swayed or don't get taken away to go and fight in another person's country. But that is how dire the situation is, that young people would much rather leave their peaceful shores to go and fight in a war outside of their country just for the hope or the prospect of a better
Helen,
tomorrow.
The point is that if I am working here, I have to go on strike before I'm heard, before I'm given what's due me. I go to the hospital to work, I don't have the right equipment to even practice my profession. I see people suffering, but I am limited in what help I can give them. What do you want me to do?
You leave.
I know public health nurses in the forgotten parts of this country who literally do not have anything. It's just a building that's there, one table and one chair. Finish. So if you come to them with a blood pressure issue, they don't even have the instrument or equipment to check if your BP is high or low, to even decide that you need a certain kind of attention. They don't have thermometers. They don't have nothing. Today is Tuesday. The health minister will be in parliament and can see our show to answer why we don't have vaccines for children. BCG, yellow fever, all those. We don't have vaccines for children. So can you imagine that you are a nurse at Pantai? And Pantai is not just for people who are mentally challenged. They do general OPD issues as well. Can you imagine that you are Pantai? You don't have the vaccine. Helen comes to deliver. 6 weeks has come. She brings her daughter in or a son in to come and assess medical care, and has to be giving some injection in the name of vaccination, and the thing is not there. The people will actually insult the nurse, forgetting that it is not her job so to do to provide the vaccines that are not available. So why would they leave?
So, Johnny, I would go back to Burma camp because the incident involved soldiers. And I was happy around 2017 when there were rumors of peacekeepers from Ghana who had, reports had it that their money had been cut, and the military, the armed forces came out to deny that there was no reduction in the daily,
in fact, it was increased in 2017
yes,
or so.
the daily amount of 35 to 31 and so on and so forth. That was good news. Because President Kufuor recently called on soldiers in West Africa, or Africa if you like, to eschew this tendency of undertaking coup d'etats and so on and so forth. But that also takes us to the kind of hard life we take our soldiers through. When you go to the Burma camp area, when you have what we call the private quarters or the single quarters, if you are not married, that's where you're supposed to start life.
That's right.
Then you go to the
very tight single room.
Then you go to the chamber and hall for corporals and sergeants, and maybe if you are a staff sergeant, you stay there. When you move to WO, then you move to the WO quarters. But you know that somebody moves into the private quarters. He's there. He's now married. First child, he's still there. He goes to the
sometimes even senior warrant officers.
I mean,
in some corner.
Yeah, because I was there. Our parents were warrant officers and WOs, and they were still living in places that was designed for corporals who were young people who didn't even have families. So all these things made the soldiers angry when the politicians were not doing what they were supposed to do. But luckily for us, in the last 30 years or so, we haven't had the soldiers taking up arms to do any of those things that we all eschew.
Can I ask this? Is our government being so paranoid about because the incessant nature in which the government keeps telling the soldiers don't go on a coup, it gives a certain signal that the government perhaps is not comfortable.
It's the picture, of course, it's the picture around a sub-region.
That's right.
You look at Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and all those guys have taken up arms, and we've learned from history, although we are not supposed to learn from history, that these soldiers come and nothing changes. Some of them come and say, look, you have one house, 2 toilets, and so you are going to be flogged publicly, but they end up having not just 2 toilets, but 5 houses. Their children are schooling abroad, and so on and so forth. So if we are remembering these soldiers who fought for the colonial government, who wanted to take their money, we should be learning from them that when it comes to the issue of soldiers, they're supposed to have their peace of mind to defend
I will extend it beyond soldiers and go to even prisons, police, fire service. And all of those. You go to take any police quarters of your choice. Take any prisons quarters of your choice. Fire service.
All the security service.
Just enter. These are people who are supposed to be providing security.
Yes.
And they need the best of peace of mind if there's anything like that.
Yeah.
And where they lay their heads is not anything to talk about.
Was it in 2021 where we saw a spate of suicides by men in uniform? It was coming up. At least in the month, you would hear about 2 incidents, and then luckily those reports stopped. But I think you can link that all back to the state of affairs. And Johnny, when you talk about paranoia, nobody can deny you that perception, especially when you hear the president continuously on international platforms say, you know, we can't let go of our democracy and so on and so forth. Even former presidents, John Mahama, we've heard him also mention that and bring that up. We've seen.
So do the right thing.
And so the only time that I think that this government listens is when the security personnel or the security, experts sound the alarm and say that threat is imminent. I think that they listen to.
But why do you continue sending me, see something, say something, I see something, I say something, you don't listen to me, and then when you feel scared, you come and tell me, see something, say something.
They are scared because of whatever is happening.
But the point is that if your brother's beard is on fire, you need to either shave yours, get a bucket of water, or protect your beard, whatever it is. The 100 nurses have left Pantai. That's dangerous.
But incidentally, the government has even launched a program, as was reported,
to
they are officially going to export
nurses. Let's speak to Dr. David Chum Tinkran. He's the General Secretary of the Nurses, Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Doc, good morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, my brother, and good morning to your studio colleagues and all Ghanaians.
Doc, on the front page of the Daily Graphic this morning, he says 100 nurses have left Pantai Hospital, an exodus for greener pastures, and these are professionals. Have you heard this news? Do you know about it?
Oh, yes, it's something that has come to our attention, and as an association, we started giving the signals as far back as 2019, even before the pandemic reared its ugly head. So this is just one facility, and so if 100 people have left just a facility, then you can imagine the extent of the exodus. So it's something that we're very much aware of.
And how should the ordinary Ghanaian be looking at this matter? Because if our experience, as the Daily Graphic put it, and nurses and other health professionals are leaving the country, then it leaves us with no choice but to worry about the quality that we'll be getting from your domain, correct?
Yeah, exactly. You're perfectly right. Indeed, as even young nurses and midwives join the field of work, they certainly need to good experience and need to mentor them. Don't forget that nursing and midwifery are skill acquisition professions, and although you become, competent or proficient while training, your proficiency increases on the field of work, and therefore you need certainly these experienced hands to be able to help them gain the requisite skills to deal with most of the conditions. So if you are in school, you are likely not to get yourself acquainted with some of the disease conditions until you come out. So it's certainly a problem for us that as a country we need to begin to have a holistic discussion about it and fashion out strategies to be able to deal with the matter.
And when is this conversation beginning?
Well, I think that, for instance, government is building Agenda 111. Certainly, we will need nurses and midwives to man those facilities. So if people are leaving, and we have given caution. I mean, I remember as far back as last year, August, we even reported that about 3,000 nurses had left the shores of Ghana as from 2020. And no attempt is being done to arrest that situation. Certainly, we cannot pay commensurate salaries as is being given out there. But if we're able to improve the service conditions, we're able to improve the allowances. Remember that you can work for 50 years as a nurse after university, and you will not receive any allowance apart from the meager salary that you are receiving. The condition of service is appalling. And there were other things. For instance, we had something we call car waiver. So, for instance, if you had somebody outside, or if you did some locum, you worked very hard, you were able to buy a car from outside. You could, clear the car without paying so much. All those things were removed. We had something called market premium. It was a form of an allowance that was to sort of show up our salaries to be able to, make by. That was frozen. When I say it was frozen, it wasn't removed. But in 2013, it was frozen. And before then, any time that the salary inches up, the market premium also goes up a bit to be able to mitigate the inflation and the cost of living and the rest of it. That's all those things were taken away. And my brother, now, if I calculate that premium to my basic salary, I think it was 50% in 2012 or 2011. It's like 15% or 20% now. So all the gains have been eroded, and we keep informing government, we keep approaching government about the need to do something substantial for Nigerians so that we can retain them. And it's not happening. So I'm not surprised at all that they are leaving, and they will leave in groups, and nobody can stop them. I have picked up now that the ministry has stopped issuing out clearance. There is something called clearance. Before you leave the country, you need to clear yourself. Previously, government used to pay student allowance, and nurses and midwives were bonded. So before you leave the shores of Ghana, you should have served the 5-year bond. And that was the essence of the introduction of the clearance. Those who wanted to leave within the 5 years will still have to pay or remit government whatever amount of money that was paid to them. Now, that said, at some point we removed the bond, but you still have to go for the clearance. So we have even extended the clearance to people who went to school and paid full school fees. So for instance, when you go to the University of Ghana, we may have two sets of students: those who are paying regular fees and those who are paying
fee-paying students.
And I think that it's such an unfair for government to place a blanket ban on sale of forms for people to leave the sort of this. Yes, I'm not advocating that people should leave, but you have to find a way to retain them. Okay, so if you cannot retain them, you cannot, it falls on their fundamental human rights. I think that they have every right to make life better for themselves everywhere on the field of the globe. So long as they have the requisite competence and they don't owe anybody. If government, if I'm owing government, and I need to serve, and there's no doubt about it. If the bond says 5 years, I need to serve. But if I've served for 10 years, 15 years, why should anybody deny me the opportunity to travel when you are not even improving my service conditions? So these are the challenges that we have. And I think that it is absolutely important that government prioritizes the life and welfare of the midwife. My brother, you'll be surprised that if you're working in Kolebu or a rich hospital as a nurse, and when you force it, you have to buy your own drugs. If you have health insurance will cover up to a point, and anything that falls outside the remit of health insurance, you have to bear it yourself as a nurse. So as an association, we have put together a health fund paying so much to nurses and midwives in this country. Sometimes we are able to pay as much as 50,000 to one nurse or one midwife, just so the person can acquire the kind of health services. Why should we do this to ourselves? You have other corporations and organizations who have free medical care, and it even extends to their 2004 of their children, below 18 years old, 23 years, and the rest of it. Nurses and midwives have no such thing. All right, we have a condition of service, and those aspects are there, but it doesn't get implemented. Okay, you are a nurse working in rich hospital. When you force it, and whatever medication that is prescribed falls outside the remit of health insurance,
you have to bear.
So if you do this to ourselves, why do you expect the people to pay? And we are even putting a ban on them to stop. I mean, very soon, I think we have to seek legal redress on some of these matters. But the earlier the better. The minister must do whatever it takes to stop those kind of things.
Do you see, Doc, do you see the ministry leading in this direction to reverse the trend?
I have not seen any practical steps that are being put in place to be able to reverse the trend. I have not seen any, except to say that they have placed a temporary ban on people who are living, which to me is neither here nor there. people who leave anyway. You know, there are people who may even decide to leave, and I know people who have left the shores of this country. That they will go. They have the qualification, they have their certificate. They can go and even start at healthcare assistant or whatever, and build themselves over there. If you portray them, there are several ways that people can leave the shores of this country without going through the clearance process. So I think the ministry must find a way to sit with the technical and the union so that we can fashion out a process that is so transparent and all that. Listen, we have a bilateral engagement with Barbados. Of course, I know that the WHO has some benchmarks that you need to meet. You know, countries are graded as yellow, red, blah, blah, blah. So depending on which grade you are, you can export medicine or not. But our people are leaving anyway. So we need to make that application to the WHO and tell them, look, my brother, despite the numbers that we have in this country, our people are living in droves. So we better sign an agreement with those receiving countries because they are taking our trained, skilled hands for free. So we can go into a bilateral engagement. I know that there are about 5 countries that are seeking to enter into bilateral arrangement with Ghana. And we need to do that so that the home country or the receiving country can pay a certain amount of money per head, per nurse to the government of Ghana. That money can even be used can be paid to the nurses as retention premium or something for those who will stay. And I'm sure some of these things can mitigate it. If you increase the allowances, if you increase their salaries a little, and like the condition of service that I was speaking to you about, we say that free medical care for health for nurses and midwives and their dependents, I think it will go a long way to help the situation. But this blanket ban and co is neither here nor there. It's just so artificial and unnecessary.
It appears there's a lot of frustration which has not been spoken about publicly within your quarters, because if I get you right, nurses are stressed, they are disturbed, disappointed, and now there's a ban that's been put on them to literally gag them. How do we get around this one?
Well, I think, as I said earlier on, it's simply unnecessary. I think that the ministry should begin to engage. I have spoken to my leader, my president, Mr. Pichu Popo, very soon write a letter to the ministry to request for an engagement to see the way forward. As far as I'm concerned, if government wants the nurses and midwives to remain in this country, they should improve their service condition. That is number one. I reckon that there is no way we can pay commensurate salary. I have traveled to several countries. We cannot pay nurses in the way they are paid in America or UK, or it cannot happen. Looking at our current economic circumstances, we all know that things are not in the best of shape. So what we need to do is to engage and find ways and means to be able to improve the service condition. And I believe that will be the starting point. They should remove that ban from there. They should continue to sell the clearance form to the people. Don't forget that we even have batches of nurses and midwives at home who have not been employed. Right, it's only recently that they issued a financial clearance for 2019 batch of nurses and stuff like that.
That's right.
And even that they are yet to engage. Of course, the financial clearance is out. I can attest to that. We have 2020, 2021 set of batches of nurses and midwives who are home. So if you cannot employ me, why do you restrict me from traveling? Okay, so I think we need to expand the conversation and see how best we can.
Doc, if what you're asking for doesn't happen, what could be the worst that may happen?
Well, the worst scenario will happen if this continues. Don't forget that in 2001, migration happens every 20 years. I've done a little study. I've come to realize that almost every 20 years we see that kind of exodus. If governments do not accede to our demands or listen to us, it will be worse. The people will leave. They will continue to leave. And there are several destinations. Now, research has shown that by 2020, 100,000 vacancies have been created in the United States of America alone. 100,000 vacancies for nurses and midwives. It was simply because nurses and midwives below the ages of 36 or 35 had left the job because of whatever I know that some of the nurses in the United States were migrating up north, Canada, and the rest of it, and even to down south to Australia. But apart from that, others had decided to look for another profession, especially because of the pandemic and the nature at which some of them died and all that. So there are several vacancies out there that will never be filled. So if government wants our people to stay, to take good care of our people, which I want that thing to happen, we need to improve the service conditions. Then we'll be going for condition of service negotiations very soon. And I believe that we should be able to leverage on that to get something for our people. Maybe that is the only solution that will resolve this matter. Otherwise, we'll continue to leave, and nobody can stop them from traveling. As I said, it borders on fundamental human rights. They have every right to make life better for themselves everywhere.
Dr. David Twum Tinkran, General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Thank you so much for your time, Doc.
Thank you, my brother, for having me.
We're grateful. We're on WhatsApp on 055-005-2927. Black Rasta will be on at 10. Giovanni comes on at 2. Alfredo Cancel will be on at 5. Radio has never gotten better than this. Tough lineup, I tell you what. DJ Phil, all day, every day.
3FM Sunrise.
William, you heard them. You heard the man. He said they will continue to live if you don't improve their situation.
I mean, it's sad when we just read last week that doctors in Canada were actually protesting against
that they were paying them too much
money. I mean, the remuneration was too much. And also to think about the fact that nurses in Ghana are so, I mean, their salaries are so low. You know, and beyond and besides the low pay, you go to the hospitals and these ladies and gentlemen are actually improvising because the equipment, the facilities that they need to work, so that you enter the hospital. Well, recent stories where you go to the washroom of some of the hospitals, you're wondering, this is a health facility.
Not good. You pick infection and take home.
The washrooms of the health facilities.
Look at Helen's face.
Are so, I don't want to use the word, I mean, so bad states that you wonder how these nurses, that's why sometimes I feel they get frustrated, because for my thesis at the University of Ghana where I did social work, my topic was stress among nurses at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital.
Big issue.
Yes, stress among nurses.
Big issue.
So I did the research.
Big issue.
And some of the responses, their marriages are under threat because they are on call, night duties, family life, waking up early, low salary. Some of them get, you know, especially a lot of them are women. You know, we have people think nurses are just women. They are gentlemen.
They are men.
But a lot of them are women.
Nurses,
and their marriage, I mean, young ones, at what time they get married, and if they get married, what attention they get for it. These are things that are disturbing them. And at a point, we even had some number of suicide cases among nurses in Accra. So it's not that easy. And especially when you take a sick person to the hospital and the nurse is the one who is come to tell you that there's no bed. So the first anger of the family of the patient is against
it comes to the nurse.
But what can she do? If we are
there's
in a country,
no bed.
2023, and we're talking about beds, we don't have beds in the hospital. And this is something that is putting so much pressure on these nurses. And even the doctors, they get opportunities to go abroad and train nuclear medicine, so medicine. They don't return, not because they don't want to come back, because the equipment to practice that kind of thing they don't have.
That's right.
You know, somebody. So the issue is not just about salaries; it's about the whole sector, the health sector. You build a cheap compound in some bush somewhere. Young pretty lady, you throw her there, say she go and take care of the indigenes there. There's no transportation. The motorbikes, they give the motorbikes and how they are fueled and so on and so forth. They don't know how to get around their jobs. So the frustration among nurses is so huge. That's why the least thing they are up in arms against the government. You know, they are picketing here and there because they are not paying them salaries. And we always use nurses to campaign for elections. Almost always. We pay nurses training allowance, this allowance, and they come into power and the allowances delay. And this is a matter of life and death. It's not about some profession that you can just say, I can postpone something. Constant. You go to the hospital. Yes.
You die.
And you go to the other day, I was in the hospital and this Okada rider came, an accident victim, and sometimes the nurses know that if they bring me and I'm not cut, I don't have any cuts, but the way I'm behaving, they would have to attend to me first before somebody was cut and is bleeding. The person who brought the patients in would not understand why you have a big open cut with blood. They are not attending to you, but they know that you are quiet, you are just humming and groaning. There might be something.
Yours might be bigger.
Yeah.
So these are things that people don't understand, and they get into the hospital, then they start insulting them, and there's an exchange. We saw how somebody, a public official, went to some hospital and just blasted a nurse.
My daughter.
So we should begin to understand them, because the word nurse, they are supposed to, if you have a health problem, nurse you back to health. And the way we are treating them, if you listen to the gentleman, it's not something that as a country we can take for granted, especially when we look at a country like Canada. What do they have that we don't have? Canada, what do they have that we don't have?
In fact, on the reverse, we have more than they have.
What do they have that we don't have? To the point that Canada is paying their nurses, their doctors,
and
too
they are
much
even
money.
complaining
And they
that you are overpaying.
me.
See, listen to this particular one. Wachi, how did he die? Listen.
Sunday, Charles Sarah, that is a week after the birthday party. And I'm for say, hey, I said my boo, and I'm saying, and also watching and and I pay a watching and your stroke in the call. Rate and almost in penny and over the call. And I was thinking, say, Mrs. Enrano, me call hospital. It just say, yeah, na Miss Usamini, and see, and I go for routine checkups and yadi. And to me call me checkups and I may ban a minimum say and run a meet me Cotrano hospital or Jesus next. And then me buy me jammy phone and put to them. Me baba call BCA or say watch. How? Apparently, I didn't do 37. There was also no bed. I just say a stretcher be soon or more. Just say at the emergency honor or that no more taking a movie training boat near before even they could come with drugs save the kakrano. Yes, well. I said no cranny will miss him, no cranny or no, yeah, because a Sunday we all met at Chasampo for the 70th birthday. Our ma was met there. He was in white. I just say, Bibia was it.
This is Grace Omabo, Madame Grace Omabo, popularly known as Mami Dokno, complaining about Prince Yosin, known as Wachi. He died because of no bed syndrome. And that's not the first. So what exactly can we get right in this country?
When you were speaking with Doc, he made mention of this idea of bilateral agreements and exporting our talent elsewhere. You recall last December, I think it was, where Health Minister said, very soon there was going to be a bilateral agreement between the UK and Ghana to send nurses abroad. Not too sure what has been made of this imminent bilateral agreement. I haven't heard too much since it was initially announced, but much like other policies initiated by this government, you get a knee-jerk reaction to certain problems, and then you don't hear about set ideas or prospective innovations any longer. Doc also mentioned that there are 5 other countries that would be willing to get into some type of bilateral agreement, and he says that government should be getting money from those types of agreements. He also mentioned something, I wrote it down if I'm not wrong, like a retention incentive even for those to stay behind. And these are all great ideas, but as always, great minds, experts speak, we congregate, we analyze the issues, proffer solutions, and then it dies.
It is because we have too many. You see, I've said it and I'll continue. We have too many things on the table, too many things on the plate.
Listen to this one. Listen to this one.
So what of you thinking there? Yeah, look. Oh, no. Man, said they have to drive back to Fijai Hospital. Oh, senior. Young maybe I will pay.
An emotional John Obreyeboa husband to the 31-year-old deceased narrating the ordeal the wife went through, leading to a death. The deceased, Augustina Awoche, lost her life earlier this month after ambulance personnel allegedly delayed her transportation via ambulance to Accra after doctors referred her from the Holy Child Clinic at Fijai in Takrady to the Kolebu Teaching Hospital.
Hospital. We were at the entrance. We stood there. He stood there. They were going up and down. And so that man came to tell me there. Why you then car over Buana? Why is it? But Jim. Boy, you can be upon there. By time the moon that made it there, well, precise time. Now one brass band, I catch a dab and there. Uncle Justin 838. Uncle Justin 838, meaning it was at that time that my wife.
The minority side.
And this is a man who lost his wife because of the same inefficiencies in the system. And justice has not been done to him. He lost his wife. The ambulance service was demanding for fuel, which is what they do when you are dying. You have lived outside before. You are dying. Ambulance appears and he says, give me fuel before I take you to the place of rescue.
Well, if I read right, I think recently they even suggested that they were going to make it official, that if you call them, they'll bill you so that they can sustain the service. I'm not too sure.
What kind of nonsense is that?
Well, the country is just... the issues are so many.
And I remember when we unveiled the ambulances, I was making my way home. They cleared all of us from the Liberation Road so they could line up the ambulance side by side. They had ribbons on their
You know the ambulance provided by... You know the ambulances that were brought. I had opportunity to host the Orbis flying plane, the world's only plane where they do eye surgeries on the plane at the airport. And I remember on that occasion, I asked Kwajima Minu, who's the health minister. I asked him why they had brought the ambulances and they had packed them at Parliament. Because I was going to do Ghana's Most Beautiful Finals.
For a long time.
So I started a campaign in 2019. Apparently, they were waiting for it to be outdoored in 2020 so that it kickstarts the campaign. The same things you have been talking about.
2020, we go show na.
So I started talking about it. And then they said, oh, we're fixing GPS on the ambulances, right? We only got to know that there was an ambulance from Sege brought to Mamprobi for repairs. And they found it way at Kaswa carrying cement.
Yes. I remember that story.
And there was no GPS on it after all. In 2021 or 2022. So the government is not being honest with us. If you listen, the ambulance service says we strive to be a world-class emergency medical service. If I am dying today and I'm the one who is choking and I make a call, touch wood, and the ambulance appears, me who is dying will now have to put my hand in my pocket and look for fuel and give them.
Even before they arrive, Johnny, you'll be treated to some holding music.
Exactly.
Sometimes, even before they get there, by the time you finish choking, they are not even there.
But the point is that you are, and sometimes they even ask you if they are going to pick you up. They ask you if the hospital they are supposed to take you to, whether you have called to find out if there's a bed.
This bed thing.
Am I the one to call to ask the hospital if there's a bed?
Johnny, there are individuals, private individuals who made efforts to bring beds, hospital beds into their country and
we
donate.
don't allow them to bring them.
And when they get to the port, they go through so much hassle, they just forget about them.
They pay plenty. Look, I know somebody who brought in bed, stretcher, all those ones. He was asked to pay money. He said, I'm coming to donate this to you.
I don't know why you have to pay.
Why do I have to pay
on things that you come to donate to maybe government hospitals or private hospitals?
What a barrier! What a barrier! And you know,
happening.
as per research, I've forgotten who told us this on Sunrise. I'll refresh my memory. He said 70% of Ghanaians would rather call a loved one or a family relative in an emergency, be it health or security emergency, before they even think
Now
about
they
calling.
even call radio stations.
Yes.
People,
Yes.
do you know how many people come to me with their problems?
but-
and I say, but this one, in the police matter, this one is court issue. They say, no, Mr. Hughes, we want you
Why are
to.
you stressing the matter? As I go to the major radio station here, we've set up tents that people come here as clinics. This one is live on radio. If you are listening, you come and check.
It's true.
The responsibility of the state has led radio stations, the major ones,
We have
to
tents
set up
to
clinics
receive things.
to receive individuals who are in need, basic
you
need, food,
know,
clothing, and shelter.
When you open
Yeah.
up for eye, say just come and check your eye. They queues that form. Come and
Madam,
check your
see,
ears. They queue.
Last
I've
year,
gone to that
last
from-
year,
I say-
last year on my birthday, I did National Health Insurance Scheme registration for free here.
Yes.
The place was choked. The machines, they brought 4 machines.
Yes.
At some point, the machine they had seizure.
Was it last month? Unia did their breakfast meeting here. And you
Yes.
see the number of people who came for eye tests.
And we have every single morning. When I finish here, you have people come. This one has land issue.